to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 18. I'm Denise.
I'm Jess.
And this week we are going to do another book-to-movie discussion, this time about The Hobbit.
Yay, because I finally got to see it.
Yes. So now that Jess has finally seen it, we can talk about it. But before we do that, we're going to talk about some other books that we're reading and some other things, some other plans that we have coming up for the podcast.
Yes, I'm still reading the Vicky Pedersen book.
Okay.
I've kind of got sidetracked because I started reading The Hobbit again. Because, the movie is only a third of the story, and I want the rest of it now. But since I can't have the other two movies, I will just satisfy myself with reading the book. And we got an advanced reader copy of House Rules by Chloe Neill.
Yay!
Which I currently have and am in the process of reading. So that's exciting, because the book doesn't come out until February 5th, I believe. And you're currently reading the first one, aren't you?
Yes, I started it yesterday, maybe, or a couple days ago. So yeah, I'm reading Some Girls Bite, which is the first in the Chicagoland Vampires series, is what it is.
One of my
and it's, let's see, I think I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through it, so I'm moving right along here. And
you want to punch
I have all
in the mouth?
Actually, no.
See, I did it first, and then he grew on me, and now I'm just maddeningly in love with Ethan Sullivan.
See, I'm actually more wanting to slap Merritt than anybody else.
She does tend to make you want to hit her for being an idiot sometimes.
Well, she's just making things more difficult than it needs to be. It just seems like, but that's another discussion for another show, but I'm enjoying it so far. So that's good. And I have all of the books in the series ready to go, so I'll try and catch up as quickly as I can.
Maybe by the time I finish this one and get it in the mail to you so you can read it, you'll be done with them.
Well, that's going to be my goal, if I can just keep reading, because there's 6 of them, and
yeah,
House Rules is the 7th one?
Yes. So
yeah, I have a while. Didn't you tell me that you were going to stop having ARCs of the last books of the series?
Yes, but I didn't. I thought when I requested this one that we would get it a lot sooner than we did, and not get it 11 days before the book comes out.
Okay, fair enough.
So I thought we would get it in plenty of time for both of us to have it read and do this, but it took a little longer than that. So
that's all right.
But we're on the ARC list now, so that means we may get the next one without having to request it.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And it was also really cool the fact when you announced it on our Twitter that Chloe Neill responded and
told
that she knows we have it. And
yes,
we're going to review it on the podcast, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I really, really love these books. I mean, this is one of those that I found it. It was when Amazon first released the Kindle for PC app so that you could read Kindle books on your computer. I was going through and getting they do the previews that you can download for free. That's like the first 1 or 2 chapters of a book.
Right.
And I found this one right after it came out. I found Some Girls Bite and downloaded the preview and read it, and I was like, oh my God, I have to have this. Mm-hmm. So now I have gotten every one of them as soon as possible when they've come out and read them. And I love them. But I like vampires, so.
Well, yeah, I like them too. But they have to be well-written vampires.
Yeah.
And there has to be something, I don't know, something that's different than just your run-of-the-mill vampires, and not making them sparkly. That was not the way to do it.
No.
But just something that makes them, just something that makes them interesting and unique in some way. And so, so far that's, I like their setup. I like their kind of system, their culture with the houses and stuff. That's really cool. So
yeah, the house system. I really like that too. And like I said, I started House Rules, and Ethan is one of those characters. He's a very dynamic character. He changes a lot from the first book up until the point we're at now. But he actually changes in a good way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, he's one of those that grows and everything, and I just keep falling more and more in love with him. I want one. Tall, gorgeous, long blonde hair, bright green eyes. I'll take 2.
Well, we'll have to see if we can place an order somewhere.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you have the 7th book out in ARC, so will that tide you over till we can buy you anything?
Maybe.
Okay.
Let's hope. And I think that's pretty much it for what I'm reading, just that, The Hobbit, and the Vicky Pedersen book. I don't really count browsing my Tolkien encyclopedia while playing Lord of the Rings Online as reading a book.
No, not really.
It does, however, make me an incredible geek, but whatever.
Well, that was already known, so that's all right.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have actually today, I cheated because I had been reading Deadline by Mira Grant with Mark Reed's, the website. And that's the one that they read like a chapter a day. And this happened in feed too, where I just got to the point where I couldn't do that anymore. And that happened with Deadline yesterday. And so I finished it today. And I think that Mark Reed's isn't going to be finishing it until sometime in the middle of next month.
Oops.
So, yeah, I just... See, the thing with those books is they get to a point where it's like, it just goes full tilt, and you just gotta hold on, like, for dear life until they get to the end of it. And you can't be patient anymore. And it's so... And again, in this one, like, at the end of feed, there was this huge, like, major thing that happened. I'm not gonna say what. But then at the end of Deadline, when I didn't think she'd be able to do it again,
but she did. Again.
And this is another one. I just sat there and I closed the book. I'm glad I was home this time and not on my lunch break sitting in my office at work with people coming in saying, "Are you okay? Because you look distracted." And I would just, had my mind completely blown because I'd finished feed and I was just like, what just happened? But so this time I was at least at home in the comfort of my own bedroom when I'm slowly sitting the book down saying, what did I just read?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And then, looking back at the last page going, no, that's really what happened. Okay. All right. Where's the next book? Just blackout. And yes, I did start reading it. So, oh well. I only got a couple chapters in just because I wanted to make sure that the ending of Deadline was in fact what I thought happened, because I was like, okay, that's what it says on the page. I read it right, but that can't really be what happened. So let's just start the next book and see, maybe she's just trying to do something weird to you, just to kind of play with your head, because she's really good at doing that. But no, that's really what happened. I'm just kind of going, I guess there's like no holds barred with this. Anything can happen. There are no limitations. All of the rules have been broken. That's just the way this whole series is going to be. Okay, now I know that. So, moving on.
Yeah.
So I'm reading Blackout by Mira Grant, and I just finished it. So there you go.
Well, I guess we should go ahead and talk about The Hobbit.
Yes. We'll go ahead and do that.
I finally got a chance to watch it. And overall, I really liked it. But then I expected to, because it's Peter Jackson, and he did such a great job with The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
There were a few small things I had problems with. But first of all, what I really liked, I loved Martin Freeman as Bilbo.
Oh my gosh. He was perfect.
He knocked it out of the park.
Yes.
I love his facial expressions when the dwarves start showing up on his doorstep, and he's just completely bewildered by everything.
Yes.
He was so good at that, and he has enough of the same mannerisms that you believe that he could grow up to be old Bilbo.
Right.
There was enough, the way he would say things and the way he would do things, that it was believable that he was the younger analog to old Bilbo.
Mm-hmm.
He knocked it out of the park. And my favorite dwarf is Keeley.
Because he's cute?
Yes.
Well, that's okay, because I've decided now that I have a massive crush on Thorin, so it's all good.
See, he just doesn't really do it for me. Part of the problem is because the guy that plays Thorin played Guy Gisborne in BBC's Robin Hood, so he was a bad guy, and my brain just doesn't want to compute him as Thorin. But did you know the guy that's playing Keeley is the one that's playing Luke Garraway in The Mortal Instruments?
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes. Aidan Turner.
Interesting.
He's playing a dwarf and a werewolf, and he's already played a vampire.
Well, then he just needs to play like a fairy or something, and then he can have like the whole set.
Yeah. And why, in the name of all of the Valar, did one of the dwarves have an axe stuck in his head?
One of the dwarves had an axe in his head?
Yes, I believe it was Bifur. He only spoke in Dwarvish.
That.
He only spoke in Dwarvish, and he had an axe stuck in his head.
I mean, I know some of them had some really weird, like, haircuts and stuff, but I did not see one that had.
Yes, he had an axe.
Okay.
And
well, I mean, I'll believe you, but wow. Okay.
And then there was the one with the tattoos on his bald head, which just seemed a little strange to me. I don't remember anything about dwarves having tattoos anywhere in the books, but whatever. And Nori's hair. Oh my lord, that's the one that Nori's hair just, when they first started releasing the photos of the dwarves, and I saw Nori's hair, and I was like, no self-respecting dwarf would be caught dead with hair like that.
I'm trying to remember which one was Nori.
His hair looks like it's got 3 points on it.
Okay, got it.
It's like he's got 3 mohawks or something. It's really weird. And a friend of mine argued with me that it was a hat. It's not his hair. I'm like, no, that's his hair, and it's weird. I love Bomber. Bomber's always been one of my favorite dwarves, and I cannot wait till we get to Mirkwood and they have to carry Bomber around because he's asleep. That's going to be funny. But, and also I like the fact that they're doing with Smaug what they did with Gollum. They're not showing all of him. All you see is his tail, his nose, and his eye.
Yeah, just little hints.
They're building up to the reveal of Smaug, which is, like I said, they did that with Gollum. He was, in the first movie, all you really saw was like a silhouette and his eyes at the very end of the movie. So, I approve of that, because that'll bring a lot of people back to the second movie, because they'll want to know what Smaug's going to look like.
Yeah. And he looks, and from what you can see, I mean, you don't see a lot of him, but what you can see, he looks really cool.
Yes, but I like dragons. Look, they better not do anything silly like give him feathers, because then I will write angry letters to Peter Jackson.
No, I don't. It didn't look like he was going to be anything weird. You know, we didn't see a lot of him, but it looked pretty much your basic traditional dragon.
Let's hope
going
so.
on. Yeah. Well, I'm going to definitely agree with the casting of Bilbo Baggins. I mean, Martin Freeman was an inspired choice. He was excellent. But I have to say, I was a really big fan of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I can't even tell you how many times I went to see those in the movie theaters. It was a lot. And,
I did too.
Yeah, and just going to the theater and sitting down and seeing like the credits coming on and hearing that Howard Shore music, all of a sudden it was just like, yeah, we're back in Middle Earth. And it was like just visiting an old friend, you know?
Yeah.
And it felt so good. And then opening it like they did, showing the beginning, basically it was like the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring.
It was the same day.
Because it was older Bilbo, Ian Holm, working on his book. And they're talking about, you know, being a hobbit and it was so cute because I knew that they were bringing back some of the people from the first trilogy.
Yeah.
But it's a little part of me I just got this big silly grin on my face when like around the corner comes Elijah Wood as Frodo. I'm just like, oh, I know you.
Look, I'm pretty sure for the first 30 minutes of the movie I sat there with my mouth open.
I was just like, oh, this is all of our friends again. Which I know, I mean that just sounds silly, I know, but it was just like, you know, it was so familiar, even though it was a brand new movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, I thought before the interaction with, you know, Ian Holm and Elijah Wood was really good. I thought that they were really well cast together.
Yes.
As the Bagginses. But, and that was still great. And then it was just so cute how it kind of connected to the other trilogy with Frodo saying, I'm going to go and wait for Gandalf. And, of course, that's what he does. And that's how the first one opens, basically. And so I liked that little tie-in. I just thought that was really, really nice, especially for, a lot of people were just going to go to this movie just because it was a big movie that was showing, whether they were fans of the book or the original trilogy or whatever.
Yeah.
But having that little tie-in for people who really loved the first trilogy that they did, I just had warm fuzzies all over. It was so nice to see.
And I'm so glad that they included verbatim, in a hole in the ground, there lived the Hobbit. I love that. I'm like, that is taken word for word straight from the book. Thank you for putting that in there.
There were several things that I think were taken word for word from the book. Now, I will admit it has been a while since I've read The Hobbit. I probably need to reread it fairly soon because I've wanted to since seeing the movie, but I've just not had a chance. But I'm pretty sure, wasn't the conversation with Gandalf when Gandalf first shows up at Bilbo's door?
Yes.
Wasn't that pretty much exactly the same too?
It was, and there were some things though that weren't dialogue in the book that were turned into dialogue for the movie, like when Gandalf's talking about Bull Roarer knocking Golfimble's head clear off with a club, and it landed in a hole, and the game of golf was invented simultaneously.
Yes.
That's in the book, but it's not dialogue. It's not being said by anybody. So
but they just included it.
Yeah, because it was funny. It was cute.
Oh, that got a chuckle all throughout the theater.
And that's as far as I have read. I haven't read very far actually, but there's a lot of stuff in there, either dialogue or just writing that was turned into dialogue that's pretty much verbatim. And that's good because that kind of helps keep the spirit of Tolkien's writing in the movie. And I have to say, one of my absolute favorite parts of both book and movie is Riddles in the Dark. That's always been my favorite part of the book, and I thought they did really well with it. I just wish there had been more of the riddles. And I've got my fingers crossed for an extended DVD that has more of the riddles.
Well, I'm sure they're going to do one like they did with the other ones.
Yeah. And
I can't imagine they won't.
Two, I did have one kind of major problem with the Riddles in the Dark scene. And that was in the book when Gollum asked the last riddle. He's pestering Bilbo, trying to get him to answer, telling him to hurry, whatever. And Bilbo is flustered, and he's trying to say, I need more time. But he just blurts out, time, which happens to be the answer to the riddle. And they didn't do that in the movie.
No, he said that he needed more time, and then all of a sudden that just kind of triggered him saying, oh, yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
whereas in the book it was more kind of dumb luck.
Yeah, that kind of annoyed me. But I can overlook it. And I'm sort of skipping around here, but I have to ask, why was Thranduil riding a moose?
It's a valid question, but, okay, for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, number one, go see the movie. Number two, this is the part kind of in the prologue-y thing where the city of Erebor is being taken over and the elves show up and they expect the elves to help them, but then the elves decide to leave. They're like, no, we're not going to risk ourselves because it's pretty much a loss.
Yeah.
And the king of the elves shows up riding a moose.
Or what?
I thought it was kind of awesome myself.
It looks a lot like a moose. It may not actually be a moose, but it looked like a moose to me.
Well, when I first saw it, I thought that it was just a really, really big stag. I'd have to see it again to see if it's a moose. How like the moose antlers.
The antlers look more moosey than they do deer.
Okay.
And I'm like, I know he's king of the Mirkwood elves and all of this whole, nature elf thing, but really, a moose. You don't see Elrond riding around on a moose. Elrond's fine with horses.
See, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought that, actually I think riding a moose was kind of badass, really.
Well, it just seems sort of silly to me, but,
A moose can hurt you. A moose is big and strong and has those big antlers on his head. A moose could cause some serious damage. So I think there could be some, good tactical strong points to riding a moose into battle if you could train it the same way you would train like a war horse or something like that.
Maybe.
I don't know.
And another thing, and I have mentioned this to several people because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't completely crazy, but the consensus is that I'm not. Oh, at least as far
about this anyway.
Yeah, about this anyway. Radagast's staff appears to be the same staff that Gandalf is carrying when the Fellowship enters Moria in the first Lord of the Rings movie, with the glowy crystal and the fingery wood, and it's not the staff he has when they enter Moria is not the staff he is carrying throughout The Hobbit.
Right.
And it looks like Radagast's staff. And I mentioned this to a friend of mine, and she found a post on a forum where somebody had said they had read an interview with Sylvester McCoy that said that that the staff Gandalf had in Moria was Radagast's staff. Which just leads me to wonder why and how Gandalf ends up with his staff.
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know.
But I love...
Unless they put it in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to, or I'm going to be confused for the rest of my life.
Mm.
I love Radagast. He was fun.
Yes, he was.
And we're going to disagree about this. I thought his rabbit sled was kind of silly, too.
I loved the rabbit sled. I don't know why I did, but it was just, he was such a strange character.
Yeah.
And, I mean, in touch with all of the nature and everything else. So if anybody was going to have a rabbit sled, it would be Radagast.
I think, too, they tried to sort of combine him with Tom Bombadil since Tom Bombadil got cut out of the whole shebang. Because...
I don't know about that.
Well...
Did he have a rabbit sled?
No, not as far as I remember.
Okay.
But, Tom Bombadil was kind of strange and slightly off. But, which reminds me, I need to show you the crackpot theory about Tolkien and the Witch King of Angmar being the same person. But, overall, it was really, really good. I loved it. There couldn't have been anybody better for any of the roles that they had in this movie. I am so glad.
I thought they were all great.
So glad that Peter Jackson got this done while, I mean, let's face it, Ian McKellen and Christopher Lee, they're kind of old. I mean, Christopher Lee is 90.
Yeah.
He's 90 and he's still dressing up as a wizard. Go, Christopher Lee.
Absolutely. Because he is awesome at it.
Yes. I'm so glad Peter Jackson did this while our illustrious wizards are still kicking. Although, I'm not sure why Saruman was in this movie.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
Because I'm pretty sure that whole scene in Rivendell with Galadriel and Saruman didn't actually happen in the book.
But no, I think that was one of the things that was, like, in one of the... They took a lot of stuff from the appendices.
Yeah.
Some of the Lost Tales. And then they also kind of rearranged things in the timeline. So I know that Gandalf and Elrond and Galadriel had, like, a meeting. I don't know if Saruman was there or not. I'm not as familiar with them as I should be. But I know that they had a meeting. I don't think that it was when it happened in the movie, but again, they're trying to take one small book and make it into 3 big movies, so they're going to be pulling stuff in.
Well, 2, they're trying to play up the fact that the necromancer is Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make a stronger connection there, because in the book, actually, it's not that clear that the necromancer in the south is Sauron, So right. I think they're playing that up to make a stronger connection to the other 3 movies.
Which is fine.
Yeah, because, well, and like you said, a lot of that information that makes it clearer is coming from the appendices and the Lost Tales and all that stuff.
Right.
But even so, I watched the movie with a couple of friends of mine, and neither one of them have read the books. I'm pretty sure I know Holly has seen all 3 of the Lord of the Rings movies. I think Paulette has too. But, I was having to explain things like, who's Thranduil? Well, he's king of the Mirkwood Elves, and he's Legolas's daddy. For those of you who don't know, King Thranduil, that's Legolas. It's his daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And, that the necromancer in the south is Sauron, and, explaining these small tie-ins that you really don't know if you haven't read the books.
Right.
Which led Holly to ask me if, when the dwarves got to Mirkwood, if we were going to see Legolas. And I was like, I really don't think so, because the character of Legolas wasn't actually created until Lord of the Rings. Plus, he's not listed in the credits until the 3rd movie. So I think it's just going to be him leaving for the Grey Havens.
It could be.
But I don't know. I don't remember seeing Gimli in the credits, and Gimli went with Legolas. So I don't know. But anyway, he's not in the credits until the 3rd movie, and I'm pretty sure the Mirkwood thing is going to happen in the next movie. Has to, because it's the desolation of Smaug, and that they go through Mirkwood, and then they do the barrel thing down the river, and then what's-his-face? Bard kills Smaug. So that'll all be in the next movie. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But, there's a lot of... Anybody who has watched these movies and has not read the books, I would strongly suggest that you do. Because Tolkien created something that's not just a story. He created an entire world with languages and history, and all of the information, all of this history is available. There's the original trilogy has the appendices in the back of it that's got a lot of extra information in it. And then there's the Unfinished Tales. Then there's the Histories of Middle-earth, which is a 10-book set. I only have 5 of them, which drives me crazy. I want the others. And then there's The Children of Hurin, which came out a few years ago. There's so much information here. It's so rich and so immense. That you even though this movie was 2.5 hours long and it only covered a third of a book, there's still stuff that wasn't covered.
Yeah. It's really amazing when you actually take the time to think about this massive thing that this man created.
Yeah.
It's absolutely astounding.
And because he wrote a story for his kids.
Yep.
That's where The Hobbit came from. He wrote the story for his kids, and then Stanley Unwin let his 10-year-old son read it. His 10-year-old son loved it, so the book was published. And then they started, wanting a sequel. And that's when he sat down and created Lord of the Rings. And, he pretty much created an entire language for this, because he created Elvish.
Yeah, 2 different kinds.
Yeah. Quenya and Sindarin. Sindarin is the one that's most complete, I believe.
Yeah.
That he actually wrote grammatical rules and words and wow.
Yeah. No, it's astounding to me. My brain can't even comprehend how rich and developed this story world is. It's something that you could study your entire life and still not know all of it.
Right.
And he created it.
And I've got a book, Tolkien's World from A to Z, The Complete Guide to Middle-earth. And it's set up like an encyclopedia. It's all of the people, all of the places, and even food and plants are listed in this book. And it's set up alphabetically. There's family genealogical tables in the back. There's a timeline. And it's, 600 pages long. And it's just, there's so much there that you need this encyclopedia. But I'm such a geek that I tend to get it out when I'm playing Lord of the Rings online. And these places that I run across, and I'm like, that sounds familiar. What is that? I'll get my encyclopedia and I'll look it up. And that's another thing, is watching The Hobbit, there's so many places mentioned in this movie that are in the game.
Mhm.
And playing the game and running all over this part of the world, my sense of geography for the world is better now. And they're talking about all these places, and I'm like, hey, I've been there. Hey, I've been there. You know,
Yeah.
it's really weird, the parallels between that. I think that's the main reason I have stuck with that game, is because it's Tolkien, because it's Lord of the Rings, because I'm so immersed in the world, because I know so much about it, and because even the game does such a wonderful job with the world.
Yeah. It's very detailed. All these little, twists, all these little roads. I mean, there's nothing that's been just, left off, or there's a dead end and that's it. It's just complete immersion into it. It's really neat.
The only thing I do miss out from the movies is that you kind of miss out on the whole story of the creation of Arda and the Valar and the Maiar, and the fact that, the wizards, the Istari, they are Maiar. And that's why somebody said they'll probably kill Radagast in a later movie, and that's how Gandalf's going to end up with his staff. And I'm like, but you can't kill one of the Maya. You just can't do that. And they're like, well, they've kind of not made an issue of that, so they can do that. And I'm like, but you can't do that.
Well, that's a lot of Silmarillion stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna expect people to follow all the Silmarillion stuff. That is a book that I have attempted to read, and I have never made it through.
See, attempt is all I have done with it. I've never made it through.
Yeah.
But through Wikipedia and through my Tolkien encyclopedia and my Atlas of Middle-earth and all of my other reference materials, I've managed to sort of piece together the story of what happened. So I kind of know, but I've never actually read the Silmarillion.
Right. Well, getting back to a couple of things about the movie, there was, obviously there's lots of changes that have to be made.
Yeah.
And there was one very important change, and in some ways it's very small, but to me it made all the difference, because I have to say, the first time when I read The Hobbit, now I had read Lord of the Rings first, the trilogy first, and I had read a couple of other things that were very serious and kind of like, we have to save the world kind of serious. And so picking up The Hobbit and reading about a bunch of dwarves who want their gold, and that's it.
Yeah.
Was kind of like, it seemed silly. I'm like, I don't care whether you get your gold. That doesn't really, who cares? I don't care. It just seemed kind of shallow and selfish and whatever. But the thing that they did with The Hobbit that I really, the movie that I really enjoyed, is because, yeah, the gold is there, but that's not the reason that they're going back. They're trying to retake their home.
Right.
And that brings it to a much more serious situation.
Yeah.
It's not just about, oh, we need our gold, because who cares? I didn't care. But having this group of basically refugees seeking to go and reclaim their homeland from this evil scourge that has taken it over. Now that's more interesting. Now I'm committed.
Yeah.
I'm much more interested in doing that, especially when you got to really see in the beginning prologue kind of thing what Erebor was.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, the special effects that they have in these are just so incredible. That place, obviously it's not a real place, but it looked like a real place.
Yeah.
And it was a place that, it's like, oh, I wish I could go there, And it was funny, one of the times I went with my mom, and she was saying, but that would never make it as a real place, because where are the handrails? They have all of these bridges that are over like nothing, and there's no handrails.
Dwarves don't need handrails, apparently.
That's what I said. They're probably fine. They're used to being in that kind of situation, but she's like, they need handrails. But, I really liked that change, because it just set the tone more like the other ones.
Yeah.
And this one was a lot more lighthearted in places.
Well, the
when you
book
have
was.
that group of dwarves, when you have that group of dwarves together, except for Thorin, because he was, kind of had a
Thundercloud over his head.
thing going on. Yeah, but when you get the rest of them together, it's gonna be a party.
Hey, instead of happy Hobbit sing-alongs, we get happy dwarf sing-alongs. I'm okay with that.
That works.
When they're singing about, what is it, bend the forks and something,
yes.
the knives, and something crack the plates, that's what Bilbo Baggins hates.
Yes.
And that's actually taken from the book. That song is actually in there. And then, the other dwarf song will kind of give you chills, but...
Yes. And it got stuck in my head for days.
Well, look, even without watching the movie, I get Hobbit songs stuck in my head. I find myself walking around singing the song from, I don't remember which movie it is. It says, you can drink your fancy ales, you can drink them by the flagon. The only brew for the brave and true comes from the Green Dragon. That one gets stuck in my head. I will walk down my hallway singing that, and I'm like, where did that even come from?
Yeah, but, oh gosh, I just love the music.
Yeah.
I love Howard Shore.
Yeah.
I mean, what an amazing choice for all of these. I mean, really.
Yeah.
He deserved all of the Oscars that he won for the original trilogy, and, he did the same amazing job in this one too.
I mean, it's for somebody who is such a fan of the books. I mean, I will admit freely, and I have said this before, I generally do a lot of picking apart when I see a movie that is made from a book. And even though I have problems, a few problems with both The Hobbit and the original trilogy, Lord of the Rings, I can overlook them. Because most of them, I can see why they changed it. Because it's really hard to take a book, which is words on a page, and translate it into a visual medium, which is pictures on a screen.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we did a whole show about the ways that people did that, and the ways they did it good, and the ways they did it really, really bad.
And that's like, there's a change in here that, at first I was like, okay, this is okay if we're going to go with this way, but now after looking at the cast list on IMDb for the third movie, I'm not entirely sure what we're doing. But that was Azog the Defiler.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, in the books, he was supposed to have died. He's not supposed to still be alive. He's not leading the orcs when the dwarves are in the pine trees. There was also supposed to be a song there, and I'm disappointed that it wasn't. But anyway, he's supposed to be dead. He was beheaded by Dane. He's not supposed to still be around kicking. He's not what happens. He's not the one leading those orcs. And at the Battle of the Five Armies, close to the end of the book, it's Azog's son, Bolg, that's leading the orcs. And I was like, oh, so we're just going to keep Azog alive instead of having to create two of these big, ugly orcs and confusing people with two different characters and trying to explain that this is his son and yada yada. We're just going to keep him alive. Okay, this works. I'm okay with that.
Right.
And then I get to looking at the casting on the third movie because I knew Orlando Bloom was going to be in there somewhere, and I was looking to see where, and I saw they have somebody cast as Bolg. So he's going to be in the third movie, and I'm like, but we kept Azog alive. We don't need him.
Well, maybe they're going to kill him off in the second movie.
They're going to have to do something, or it's going to be really confusing. But
well, I'm sure they'll do something. It'll make it work.
And I'm also disappointed that we didn't get to hear the Eagles talk.
Yeah, that bothered me in the original trilogy too. I was like, come on.
They're supposed to talk.
Yeah, but that's okay.
We were watching it, and I was like, I said something to my dad. I was like, are the Eagles not supposed to talk? He's like, no, I think they talk to Gandalf, but that's it. And I got the Hobbit out, and I looked, and no, they actually talk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gwahir, however you pronounce it, the leader of the Eagles talks. So,
yeah.
I was kind of sad that they didn't. And I want one of the giant eagles. I don't know where I would put it, but
I don't. If you have a giant eagle, I don't think you get to tell it where it goes.
That's probably true.
I'm just gonna guess.
I would really, really like to have one because they're really, really awesome. Because on the cover, and see, I don't know what was with this let's just drop them off on a rock in the middle of nowhere business, because in the book, I'm pretty sure they took them to their eyries. Because the cover of one of my copies of The Hobbit is them standing in an eagle's nest.
Well, when I went to see it with my mom, she made up a good point. She was like, okay, they dropped them off in this, rock, and they're looking out and they see the lonely mountain. Couldn't the eagles have just taken them the rest of the way, because it's right there?
No, that's actually in the book. That's why they talk. That's what they were talking about. They wouldn't take them anywhere near a settlement of men.
Oh, okay.
Because Gwaihir tells Gandalf, if the men see us, they will try to shoot us with their bows and, blah, blah, blah. So they wouldn't go anywhere near a settlement. That's why they didn't take them the rest.
So that's why they didn't go. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, see, then the eagles had to talk otherwise, because my mom was like, why don't they just take them? It's right there.
Yeah. They should have left that in there.
There you go. But like you were saying, with the changes that they have to make with this, I think you can just tell how much Peter Jackson and all of the other people who worked on this film, you can just tell how much they love these stories and these characters, because they change things, but they also, there's just such attention to detail that they have to change things. You know that there's a good reason for it. And like all these little details, like when you were looking at all of the dwarves, I was looking at them all, and I could immediately tell which one Gloin was.
Yeah.
Because in the original trilogy, you had Gimli, son of Gloin, and wouldn't you know, Gloin's in this one, and they look remarkably similar.
Yes.
As father and son would. And
actually the way I recognized him was his axe. Because, in the original trilogy, when they're in Rivendell,
mm-hmm.
Gimli grabs Gloin's axe and gets up and uses Gloin's axe to smash the ring, which does nothing but destroy Gloin's axe.
Yeah, he probably got a talking to for that.
But the axe Gloin is carrying in The Hobbit is the same axe that Gimli grabs up and hits the ring with.
See, that's just awesome.
I mean, that's what I noticed, is hey, that's the same axe,
Mm-hmm.
And, they did such a good job with the dwarves. My friend Morgan doesn't like the fact that Keeley looks the way he does. Because she's like, he doesn't look anything like a dwarf. I'm like, but he's a young dwarf.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten his beard in yet.
I was like, okay,
time.
Maybe they should have given him a little more beard or put some braids in his hair to get him a little more dwarf looking, but they gotta have a hot dwarf. Come on now.
Yeah, actually, Keeley and Feely both were not too bad.
Yeah, well, I think both of them, they were the two youngest ones in
They're the babies.
The company.
Yeah. So. Although I still really like Thorin.
Thorin just didn't do it for me. But
no,
like I said,
right.
I think a lot of that is because I saw him, my brain just, he's a villain. He's Scott Gisborne from Robin Hood. He's not a good guy. I think that's why I didn't really, but I mean, don't get me wrong, he did a wonderful job as Thorin. He did.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole doom and gloom and angst, and he had that down.
Oh, yeah.
All these other dwarves, trying to be happy-go-lucky about the whole thing, and Thorin's just like, oh.
Y'all don't really understand what we're doing here.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to forget. Yeah. No, he did that perfectly, I thought. And one other thing that I have to say cannot go unmentioned, even though I would have said this about the original movies, the original trilogy, I'm going to say it again here, because it is just as applicable. Andy Serkis is a genius.
Yes, absolutely. I love...
And oh my God. And it's so strange to see all the work that he's put into developing the character of Gollum and the schizophrenia going back and forth between the two sides of Gollum and Smeagol. But it's so weird to think of all of the work that he's done, and then you never actually really see him
Yeah.
I mean, you see what he's done, and the technology is just amazing to me, how they can take the exact movement, the exact facial expressions and everything, and translate that into, what you see on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely amazing. I could not even
and not
begin
to
understand how they do that.
He directed part of The Hobbit too.
Yeah.
He was doing a lot of the directing, like I think he was the B unit director.
Yeah, I think so. Which, that's pretty awesome too. But he's just amazing. I'm not sure exactly where it is. I know I saw it on YouTube probably, so it might be on one of the like special features DVDs maybe. But it was a scene from, oh gosh, it was probably Two Towers. I can't remember. But it's one of the ones where Gollum is arguing with himself and talking about whether he's going to, betray Frodo and Sam, or whether he's going to help them and be, a good little hobbit. But they have the film of Andy Serkis doing it, as opposed to actually the animation.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
So it's actually him in his, jumpsuit looking thing, got all the dots on his face so that they can track all the movements and everything. But it's the exact same scene, or shot by shot, frame by frame, just with him there, and then they take him out and they put, the animation in his place. So it's really interesting to see that, because it's easy to think, oh, well, it's just animation. No, it's not. This is a performance.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You just don't happen to see the performer.
Right. Because, I mean, that's
but every single thing that Gollum's doing, he's doing.
Yes.
All of that's coming from him. And it's easy to forget that.
Yeah, even the scene where he's rolling around in the creek trying to catch a fish, Andy Serkis actually did that.
I nearly got hypothermia.
Yeah. I'm like, this is not just, a CGI'd character. This is based on a performance by an actual human being who is bleeding amazing.
Yeah. And I was looking forward, not because you said the Riddles in the Dark was your favorite scene from the book, and I was looking forward to that scene too, not because it was my favorite, but just because I couldn't wait to see if Andy Serkis was going to be as awesome as he was in the first trilogy. And of course he was. He was just awesome.
He was.
I cannot say enough about him. I mean,
and he's one of those that you can tell. I mean, and like you said, they track his facial expressions and everything, and you can tell by his face and the eyes on the animation if it's Gollum or Smeagol.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that can do that with their face and their eyes, they deserve an award.
Well, like I said, that one where they're showing like actual, Andy doing it. It's just he's flipping back and forth between the two, and they're such two extremes. I mean, you have Smeagol, who's this really, innocent, sweet kind of character, and then you have Gollum, who's sinister and conniving and just, evil. He's been corrupted for so many years by having the ring, and and Smeagol is what he could have been if he'd never gotten the ring, and just the flipping back and forth between those two characters, and it's just seamless. I don't know how he does it. I really don't. But he's amazing.
Yeah, he's, like I said, the casting in the original trilogy, and, well, I mean, it's pretty much the same in The Hobbit, with except for, the dwarves, but they done such a wonderful job with the casting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there could have been anybody better to play any of these. Christopher Lee was born to play Saruman.
Well, Ian McKellen was born to play Gandalf.
He really was. I mean, there's nobody else that could have played those any better. Because, I mean, that's just, well, I mean, Christopher Lee, he kind of gets typecast as that character anyway, because he's made a career out of playing the bad guy.
Right.
But he's so good at it. And
he's so good at it.
And the thing that I think really made him suit Saruman is they talk about in the books about okay, I don't know who I was trying to say there. about Saruman's musical, soothing voice.
Mm-hmm.
And Christopher Lee's voice is perfect for that role.
Oh gosh, he has just that voice. Just oh yeah.
I mean, it was perfect. I mean, not just his acting skills, not just his voice was even perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
He can go from doing the soothing and the calming to the threatening and the evil. He can just make that transition. And once you find out that he's in the first ones, once you find out that he's been corrupted, all of a sudden, the nice, reasonable voice who was discussing everything with Gandalf is now yelling at him and fighting him and everything else.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, he's amazing, and I'm very grateful that he's still around and kicking and doing a great job.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't have that much to do in this one, but hey, he was still great.
Yeah, I mean, at 90 years old and he's still doing this. I mean,
yeah, you go, Christopher Lee.
Well, Ian McKellen is in his 70s, and Martin Freeman is not as old as I thought he was.
Okay, how old did you think he was?
I thought he was, in his 40s, late 40s. He was born in 1971.
Okay.
I was like, okay, he's not as old as I thought he was. Moving on.
I'm sure he'll be glad to hear you say that.
I just assumed. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, they have to get somebody old to play this part. It was just, I assumed he was older than that for some reason. Which, I mean, Bilbo was 51.
Well, yeah, but hobbits age funny.
Right. Hobbits don't age. I mean, they're not considered adults until they're, 50? 30?
Yeah.
Something?
I thought it was 33 or something like that.
Whatever it is, that's how old Frodo turns the day Bilbo turned 11.
Yeah. So I remember there was quite a bit of uproar in the Tolkien community when Elijah Wood was cast as Frodo, because they're like, he's like 17 or 18 years old and Frodo's supposed to be in his 30s. It's like, well, but by Hobbit standards, he is coming of age and he is still very, very young, so
right.
It's still okay.
Right. Well, I think he was 19 actually, but close. Because, on the tavern, we started a thread talking about this. Actually, I started the thread before the movie ever came out.
Yeah, when we were talking about it.
And
all the hype leading to it.
Marita said that it surprised her, it struck her how much older Elijah Wood looked. And I was like, really? He didn't look as much older to me as Ian McKellen did. Because Ian McKellen has aged a lot in the intervening, 11 years? To me, it just struck me that he looked a lot older than he did in the original ones. Elijah Wood didn't look that much older to me.
No, I don't think he ages. He looks, he was in a movie that I loved. I think it was like a Disney version of The Adventures of Huck Finn.
Yeah.
And he played Huck Finn. And he was probably like 12, maybe 10 or 12. And he looks the same.
Yeah, he really does. Tom and Huck, that's what it is. I have it.
No, because it didn't have Tom Sawyer in it. That was a different one.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about, though, because I've seen it.
Yeah. It was really good, And he's an adorable Huck Finn. But, it was like, he looks exactly the same as he did when he was 12. It's like he doesn't, I'm sure he got taller, but other than that, he doesn't look much different.
Well, yeah, but I thought, I was kind of anxious about the whole let's bring these people back. I'm like, but they're going to have to tie it into the original trilogy somehow. Yeah. Because there's going to be a lot of people that won't understand how everything connects if they don't tie it together somehow.
Right.
But I thought they did a really good job with it. They didn't make it too much of a focus of the movie. It's just like, oh, by the way, these people, yeah, they're important.
Yeah.
And it worked.
And it was enough, so even if you're going to this movie for some reason without seeing the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, you can still go with it. You don't have to have seen the first trilogy to enjoy this movie. Now, we think you should see the original trilogy regardless.
Yes.
but you don't have to in order to enjoy this movie, because they've set it up enough that it does connect with the other ones, but it's also completely fine by itself.
Yes.
They've done, both sides of it.
And the books are like that too, though. I mean,
That's true.
I mean, the Hobbit basically just tells us how Bilbo came by the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really the only connection that it has to the Lord of the Rings. Because in Lord of the Rings, you start out with Bilbo having the ring, and he's leaving, and he leaves the ring to Frodo.
Right.
All the Hobbit is the story of how Bilbo came by the ring. So, I mean,
Right.
You don't have to read one to read the other, and you don't have to read them in a certain order.
Right.
You like you said, you read the Lord of the Rings before you read the Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
I read them the other way. I read the Hobbit first, but you can read the Lord of the Rings and then read the Hobbit and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I wanted this story. I wondered how Bilbo came by the ring. And at the same time, you can read the Hobbit first, and it's a great story and stands on its own, and then you find out, oh, Lord of the Rings, this has to do with that ring that little Hobbit guy had? Okay, I need to read this. So, I mean, they're standalone, but they're connected.
Right.
They did a really good job of keeping that with the way they did the movie. So
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this for almost an hour.
Well, there's a lot to talk about.
There really is. And then we get 2 more movies. So we'll have to do this again.
Well, we will. And this is right up our alley. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so like you said, we have a thread set up at Tavern. So you can head over there and join in the discussion there. We've talked a little bit before the movie came out, and now our impressions about what we thought of it afterwards. So the web address for that is www.maltavern.com.
Yes, come join our discussion. Tell us what you did like, what you didn't like. We'll be glad to argue with you about it.
Oh, yeah. Because we're always arguing about something.
Yes, but well, it wouldn't be the Tavern if we didn't.
Well, because even if we enjoy it, we still have to find something that we have to nitpick just a little at least.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how we are. That's what makes it fun.
Yes.
So there's other ways you can let us know what you thought too. You can email us at bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at BibAnonPodcast. And please let us know what you thought of the movie or what you thought of the book if you haven't seen the movie. And if you haven't seen the movie, go see it because it's really good.
And get your hands on the rest of the Lord of the Rings movies too, because they're awesome.
Yes. But also we do want to start asking for some topic recommendations.
Yes.
We are starting to run out of the ones that we had originally come up with when we first started doing this podcast. So we would like to get some suggestions. And so you can send it to the email, you can send it to us on Twitter, you can send it to us through the Tavern, or you can also comment to us on our official website, which is www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com.
Yep. And we look forward to being here next week.
Yes, we do.
And we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.